שיבואו ייכנסו פנימה. תגידי להם, זה הזמן להיכנס. לא יודע, ננהל את זה בעברית אולי, אני לא יודע. אין לי בעיה, אפשר גם באנגלית. זה משודר ביוטיוב? אוקיי. עכשיו? לא. Are you recording? אוקיי. לא, עוד לא התחיל. Are we starting? Okay. Okay, let's start. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our smart transportation session. We have three speakers. Myself, my name is Shai Sofer, I'm the chief scientist of the ministry. Ms. Daniela Gera Margaliot and Mr. Ofer Eliashar, and they will present themselves later. We'll talk a little bit about smart transportation, we'll talk about strategy, initiatives, and a lot of our activities that concern climate change from a transport point of view. Then let's start and let's talk a little bit about it. Okay, I'll start with ITS in Israel, a little bit about our programs and what we are doing. We are working a lot about autonomous vehicle, and now we are starting to work on autonomous buses. If you saw our program and the tender that we had, we have now 4 companies that won this tender for autonomous buses. And a basis for autonomous vehicles and autonomous buses are V2V, vehicle to vehicle, and V2I, vehicle to infrastructure communication. And that was our major issue in the establishment of autonomous vehicle initiative, and we started to work on it 3 years ago, and now it's very mature. Connectivity, enhanced autonomous driving, as I mentioned, and we have 3 pillars. It's avoid accidents, it supports fuel efficiency, and equalized steady state traffic, and these 3 pillars are the main pillars that we are working on when we are dealing with autonomous vehicles and autonomous driving. We have some other initiatives that deals with signal lights, the adaptive traffic light. We have a very good experience with this kind of equipment, and we think that this is part of our future in transportation. It's a very technological traffic lights, and we think it's very, very important. I hope you all know Mobileye. Mobileye is a very serious company here in Israel. It deals with autonomous vehicles. It's one of 2 companies in Israel that have authorization to ride in public roads. It's Mobileye and Yandex. Yandex is a Russian company. And the technology is Israeli technology led by Professor Amnon Shashua, and they work now a lot in Israel. They have several autonomous vehicles, some electric, some are ICE, internal combustion engine. Waze Waze is also an Israeli company that deals with smart GPS, and it was acquired by Google in 2013, and it's also one of our best practice in ITS technology. Another ITS technology is a GET. I hope also you know GET. It's למעשה, you can order a taxi by using the company's GPS-based smartphone app. It was one of our first applications in Israel, and now we have several like it, and I think it's a very good one. Move-it also is a public transit app and a mapping service, and you can now also pay with it. It won a tender of MOT tenders that you also can plan your route and also you can pay for it. Then everything you can do with a Move-it application. I want to talk a little bit about the INTC. INTC is our playground. What we do, everything in testing vehicles. It's located in Ashdod, near the bay. And you can see what we are doing. We have a lot of test sites over there. We have a $50 million investment about it, and what we do, we always test autonomous or electric vehicles before we try it on public roads. We work in this test site. It's a very good one. And we also work on a cyber test center, also in this location, in order to have a full package for autonomous vehicle testing and driving in this matter. We hope that Israel will be a proving ground in autonomous vehicle and in all the areas that we deal with new cars or new technology for cars. And I'll talk a little bit further about all the technologies that we are dealing for clean energy. Just I wanted to mention our test site because it is very important for us to test every technology before it goes on public roads. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about our fleet, about electric vehicles, and after that about hydrogen ones. But let's start with the electric. We have last year we passed a very important government decision, 171, that talks about electric buses. All of our city fleet will be electrified from 2026. Then until 2025, we hope that we will stop working with diesel buses. The technology is very matured. We can work with electric buses, and we don't have any problem. The range is over 350 kilometers. Then it can work all day and charge at night. We don't have any problem. We have very good experience with this kind of buses. Another solution for the city is the quadricycles. We also tested them in the ministry. We have all kinds of quadricycles in Israel. It's a very good one. It's fully electric. It can be a very successful vehicle for the city. Only for cities use, of course. The range is something like between 80 to 120 kilometers. It's excellent for the city. Electric motorcycles, also we have very good experience for electric motorcycles. We have several brands of electric motorcycles in Israel. These kind of motorcycles were purchased for our police, for Israeli police, and we use them a lot. The range here is something like 200 kilometers, and a policeman can walk on it, and no problem. Also, we purchased several for the fire department, The advantage of this kind of motorcycles that because it's not an ICE motorcycle, it can work with smoke, a lot of smoke or floods or everything, because everything is closed and you don't have any problem to work with it for emergency or such issues. Also, from economical point of view, you see the break-even point because the advantage is double. You don't use gas, and the maintenance is nothing, really nothing. It's an electrical motor with a battery, and there is nothing to it. And we have very good experience. We use it from 2016, almost 6 years now. Very, very good. Okay, let's talk about fuel cell. I think this is the main technology that we are dealing with today, because electric technology is proven, we know it, it's very simple. Electric motors are very common, and the batteries are just improving all the time. But fuel cell is very new. Fuel cell, as we see it, is for long distance, especially for trucks or buses that drives in rural roads. And we got a Hyundai truck. We got it from Hyundai, and what we want to prove is that hydrogen plays a key role in these scenarios, and we can see that it's very, very important from world energy demand and CO2 emissions. And why hydrogen? The main issue about hydrogen is quick charging. You can have it like ICE engines. You can just fill in hydrogen, and you can have a range of 600 kilometers by 3 minutes, 4 minutes, unlike electric vehicles that you have to charge for 1 hour or 40 minutes. You can have a longer driving per charge, more loading, zero emissions, and of course clean air. And we see it as the next technology for a long distance. Of course, the automotive industry has a major role to reduce greenhouse gas, and we can see the impacts all over here. I visited a lot of booths here, and everybody's talking about the transport. Transport, I think, is a major contributor to CO2 emissions. I think also that in next COP in Dubai, we must have a transport day, because as I mentioned before, it's a very, very important issue in the CO2 emissions. Hydrogen is an enabler for energy transition. As we can see, it's a green power, and we are talking about green hydrogen, and we think that it is very important. Also, it has been recognized by the EU as a very important sector for transport. Okay, I won't talk a lot about it, but I just want to show you a battery electric vs fuel cell electric truck. You can see that you have a lot of differences between the two. The payload, the charging, and the whole maintenance and how you work with the truck is different. And we think that fuel cell trucks are much better from this point of view. Now we are working also only with the Hyundai trucks, but we know that there are a lot of other manufacturers that now we are not working with them, but we hope that in the near future we'll work with them. We think that electric buses and electric cars are very good for mid-range use, up to 600 kilometers, 700 kilometers, but above this, now, maybe in several years' time it will be different, but meanwhile, if you want to drive much more, like a truck or bus that drives between cities, you must have a fuel cell solution, and we want to embrace it in Israel in order to change our fleet also from diesel trucks to fuel cell trucks. That's how the truck is built. You can see the hydrogen tanks. They are here. And it's very simple to use. It's not very complicated. And it works. It works also in Europe. I know that Switzerland got something like 44 trucks, and a lot of other states are working on this issue. And also you can work with heavy-duty trucks, as you can see here, 6x2 or 4x2. Also a very good one, up to 34 tons or 40 tons. It can work a very good one, no problem. And we must, as you can see this flower, we must have mutual partners, and we have to combine all our forces in order to work on this technology, because it's very new and because we have, it's not a common use, not yet anyhow. And you can see how do you see the adoption of this technology here in this chart? And I really hope that we can work with it in the near future. And that's the end of the presentation, of my presentation. And just to conclude, as we see the Israeli fleet, we would like that in the next years, the fleet will be divided to regular battery-based electric cars and fuel cell vehicles, especially heavy vehicles, in our fleet. That's my role, and now Daniela, you are most welcome to come and speak.
Hi everybody, welcome. Just waiting for my slides. I'm Daniela Gera Margaliot. I'm Deputy Director General in the Ministry of Transport, in charge of innovation and smart mobility. And I'm very happy to be here, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about smart mobility in Israel, what we're doing about the smart mobility ecosystem in Israel, and hope you find it interesting. Okay, so it's a bit difficult to see. Can you see? Yeah, okay. Hang on. Okay, so first of all, when I talk about smart mobility, what am I actually talking about? I'm talking about four main trends: connected, electric, shared, and autonomous. Shai mentioned a few of them before. I'll just go over them quickly so we all know what I mean. When I say connected, I'm actually talking about communication. Communication between the vehicles, vehicle-to-vehicle communication, vehicle-to-infrastructure and communication, and also communication between people, our phones, and the infrastructure and the vehicles. In other words, the future, when everything is connected, talking to each other, data is moving from one to the other, and this has a lot of potential for already giving us a lot of positive impact. For example, two easy things to imagine. One is that when you are connected to other vehicles, you can actually, it's sort of a sixth sense. You can see things that you couldn't have otherwise seen with your sensors, etc. So if you want to see something behind the bend or above the hill coming up the other side, all sorts of things that we as people can't see today and cause accidents, or even just you're about to take the turn and there's somebody about to cross the road, or a bicycle there, or anything. Once everything is connected and everything is, on the cloud and you can see everything, the future cars or whatever's moving around will be able to prevent these kind of road accidents that we have a lot of today. And also, even if it's just congestion caused from, cars in front of you, 5 cars ahead of you slowing down, you can slow down. Or if they're moving, you can move in time. So the communication creates a more efficient and a safer transportation. That's the main potential there. Electric, Shai was talking about that before, and generally, it's moving to electric propulsion. It's really what we hear, all the main added value of that is, of course, the transition to net zero emissions, moving away from ICE to electric propulsion. Shared, talking about the two different kinds of shared rides and shared vehicles. Shared rides as in carpooling, in the same vehicle we can all go. If we're going the same way, we can all have a shared ride and reduce the amount of cars on the road. And shared vehicles is like a shared fleet where different times different people can use the same vehicle, if it's bicycles or cars or whatever. And the main value of that, people often get confused and they say, well, that doesn't help. I'm taking a car, so I'll just take this car. It doesn't reduce cars. But the theory is that if you're using a shared fleet and you've given up on owning a car, then you will more likely sometimes to not use the car and use other means of transportation, and it moves you to a more multimodal form of behavior, and there's a big value in that. And autonomous vehicles, again, Shai mentioned before, autonomous, as we know, can really change a lot of things, has a lot of potential if it's lowering the price because we don't need a driver, and B, of course, the whole world of efficiency and less road accidents, etc. So that's generally what I'm talking about when I say smart mobility. When you put the four trends together, you get disruption, okay, a revolution. We call it the smart mobility revolution. And what I'm going to show you now is a few slides that actually position Israel, give you a view of where we are today in the revolution. And Israel is also dubbed the smart tech, what's it called? High-tech nation, startup nation, okay? The startup nation. And as part of the startup nation, we have some very strong points. One of them is cyber. Everybody knows about Israel's cyber strengths. But also another one is the automotive high-tech industry, the smart mobility ecosystem. We have today more than 650 companies, startup companies, active in Israel today in the smart mobility sector and the field. As you can see, it's growing all the time. Every year we have more and more companies that are starting. Some, of course, close and some merge, but we always have more than we had the year before, even through COVID years. And I think this is a very surprising slide, but when you look at it, in the past decade, we've had more than $25 billion of foreign funds, international funds, invested in Israeli smart mobility companies. And according to a report by McKinsey, that's more than 10% of the worldwide investments have been invested in Israel. It's actually putting us similar to cyber. Also there we're about 10% of world investments, and Israel has actually become a hub, okay, a smart mobility hub, recognized by the world. Of course, we have Mobileye, which I mentioned, which was 17 billion of the 25, but even without Mobileye, if you look at the bottom graph is investments, the top graph is investments with acquisitions. The acquisitions, the big ones were Waze at the beginning of the 2011, I think it was. That was 1 billion, and Mobileye in 2017, and Moovit a few years ago. But if you take those away, we have always a steady growing amount of investments, about $500 million a year in Israeli smart mobility companies. The investments are also, it's important to say, not all focused in one sector. It's not that it's all in autonomous. Okay, the Israeli companies, the 650 companies I mentioned before, I'll show it in a slide in a minute, but they are, how do you say, parus, they are spread across the different sectors. We have in mobility services, we have in propulsion, electrification and charging, in drones and aviation, we have even in maritime, we call it supply chain, and this is, as you can see, it's evenly spread almost. This is without Mobileye, so it doesn't, skew the graph. Another interesting point, if you look at the Israeli ecosystem, is that the companies are in all the different stages. They're not all, just at the beginning or all already big like Mobileye. We have companies that are pre-seed, some are even still stealth. We have companies that are round A, round B in investing, and we have, of course, the established companies. And this graph changes every year. The ones that were round A become round B, and the ones that were round B become round C, and it's very dynamic, and the ecosystem is all the time moving and evolving. This is the graph I mentioned before, but just to show you that also we have the different stages in the different sectors. Every sector has all the stages, so it's really well spread, well diverse, a very strong, in other words, ecosystem of smart mobility. The last slide about the ecosystem, and then I'll move about, talk about policy. And I think this slide really shows one of our, instead of me talking about it, it's like the world is showing us that they believe in Israel, because we today have more than 35 international smart mobility R&D centers, OEMs, international OEMs that have come to Israel and opened up a center for R&D. It used to be about 4 rows here and only technology scouting, okay? And over time, the involvement of the foreign OEM companies has grown. So it's gone from technology scouting to a local investment to opening up an R&D center. And also we have many, many more R&D OEMs in Israel. So if it was 4 rows, now we have 35 rows. So again, all the time growing, and hopefully we'll keep growing. And now I'll move a little bit to talk about policy and about how this affects what we're all here for, climate and ecological things. So as I was saying, the smart mobility revolution is disruptive, and it will change our world. And the question is, will it change it for the better or for the worse? Okay, like any new technology, it presents opportunities, but it also presents risks. And I think we see it as our responsibility in the government to help create the right policies to usher these new technologies, to help us usher in new equilibriums of, let's say, in our case, safer and cleaner and more efficient and inclusive transportation for all. So how do we do that? That's the main challenge that we have today. First of all, it's important to understand that the effects, as I was already saying, go far beyond transportation. It's not just pollution and congestion and road accidents. The effects of the smart mobility revolution deal with, we were talking about it before, with the trucks, but the logistics, of course, with employment, when we're talking about the future of the drivers, the justice system, when we talk about the inclusion of artificial intelligence as autonomous cars become an agent on the road, and you have to decide who's going to be responsible in case of something. These are new questions for the legislation to deal with all around the world, and it's happening first in transportation. It could have happened in maybe medicine and in other places, but it's happening first in transportation, and we have to deal with these questions. It's a lot to do with communication, and it's going to change, and cyber, and it's going to change a lot of things, even fiscal things. We now have an active discussion in Israel about the implications of the growing presence of electric vehicles. The Ministry of Finance is saying that this is a threat to income taxes from fuel. And threat or no threat, it is a change, and we have to deal with lots of things that this revolution is going to bring with it. So what are we doing in the ministry to promote all this innovation and the revolution, and to harness it for the positive impacts that we believe it can bring? First of all, we're promoting innovation. Generally, our theory is, you need to mix and match and shake and stir academia, industry, and entrepreneurs together. So we've created all sorts of tools, pioneering tools, to support this collaboration. And I'll go through a few of them in a second. The other general concept is that we want to support this innovation all through, from the beginning, very, very early stages, till really the scale up and the big companies, from just 2 guys in university who have a very theoretical basic idea, until you get to the mobilized stage. Okay, so we've created tools to support every stage of creation of innovation, from basic and applied research. We have research centers, I'll talk about them in a second, industrial R&D, and the move from basic and applied to industrial R&D, an entrepreneurial community. Maybe you've heard about it, EcoMotion. We have more than 13,000 entrepreneurs part of the EcoMotion community. Startups, pilots and demonstrations. Shai mentioned the pilot of autonomous buses, which was just approved last week. Today we approved continued pilot of the National Drones Initiative, and we have also many other demonstrations and pilots. We have about a few dozens going on right now in safety and in autonomous and connected and shared. all very cutting-edge technologies that the government is actually supporting and enabling with regulation that's supportive to the pilot and scale up. Okay, so actually 5 years ago, before smart mobility became a buzzword, the government of Israel passed a resolution and created a national plan for smart mobility. This was before Mobileye, the beginning of 2017, and the government recognized there are a few more here, but 6 to 9 main focal points of action that would enable and support this ecosystem to grow. Again, Shai mentioned a few, but I'll go over them quickly because we're very proud of them. First of all, we've created 3 test sites, one for cyber security for all the automotive, one for connected and autonomous vehicles, and one for the drones initiative in Yerucham. So we have these centers that you can come and test, and we will welcome anybody who's interested to come and do so. We have a very interesting and advanced technologies for testing. Supportive regulations, so we've done all sorts of things, but the best example is really, I think, one of the most advanced in the world legislations for enabling commercial use of autonomous vehicles on the roads in 2022. We can now, in Israel, it's now legal to drive without a test driver. There are very few places in the world where you can have the autonomous car driving without taking the test driver out of the car and driving around, and it's legal now in Israel. And that's a result of a lot of efforts, a joint effort of many ministries, overcoming a lot of skepticism and worries about privacy issues, public safety, of course, etc. And we're doing it, we're there. Pilots and demonstrations, so I mentioned the National Drones Initiative and the Autonomous Buses Initiative, and we have all sorts of other interesting pilots and demonstrations, dozens currently underway. Research centers, we have a national smart mobility research center opened in the Technion with Bar Ilan, creating collaborations and interdisciplinary research. As you know, smart mobility is relevant to all sorts of different kinds of disciplinaries. It can be from obviously geography and transportation, but it can be business models, it can be computer sciences, talking about AI and deep machine learning, etc. It can be, as I said, law, and all sorts of other things. And when you put them all together, we believe you get very interesting, relevant research. We're doing a lot to open up data. We have a national plan for creating a national data platform for mobility data. And we're constantly opening and creating more access to data as like a fuel for innovation. We support consortiums of the industry with dozens of companies put together to reach a certain goal. Andromeda and Avatar, both of them are in the autonomous field. And also we have the Israeli Living Lab, which is another kind of consortium. And as I mentioned, the EcoMotion community. So these are things that we identified about 5 years ago, and it seems like it's all easy and it's here, but it took a long time to get there, and today we're very proud that they're all standing and exist, and they're working hard, and I think they're doing a lot to help the ecosystem flourish and be as it is today. And the other side of this is also what I was saying before, to create the right policies, okay, to harness all of this new technologies and innovation to serve us, to serve the citizens of the world, to answer some of the most pressing challenges that we have. We all know, I mean, I put a few of them here, but pollution, obviously, and I talked about the electric revolution in that sense, but also accessibility, inequality, cost of living. I mentioned the change in the pricing that will be a result of both the electrification and autonomous. Low productivity and congestion, they go together. Because of congestion, we have low productivity. If we could solve that, we could really raise productivity. Traffic accidents, which are, of course, a terrible problem we have today. So the smart mobility, as we see it, has great potential to help solving some of these issues in a different angle, okay? Not the regular, not trying to solve these problems with the old tools, but trying to find new ways of solving them. And the main challenge we face today, having understood all that and done what we've done so far, is really the implementation. Because to enable these technologies to be implemented is a long and winding road. There are a lot of, as I said before, not skepticism, but natural, difficulties for anybody to just, you don't open up your arms and embrace innovation and say, let's go. You have main issue is public safety, of course, but also I mentioned privacy issues which come along with what are the connectivity and the autonomous and all this data moving around, and we have to do it, in a smart way for smart mobility. And if we do it right, hopefully we'll get to enjoy all of the positive impact this can have, ecological and social impact. And if we do it the wrong way, we might get to a situation which is even worse than today. So it's very important to be aware of this, and we're all looking at it very carefully. And we'd be happy to have any discussion and want to hear what everybody else is doing in the world to get there. Mainly transitioning to zero emissions, I think, is what we're going to talk about here, but also the other issues that we raised here. So that's it. Thank you very much. I invite Ofer.